Hello everyone and welcome to Happily Ever Reality. Today we are talking about the book Becoming Sister Wives. This is actually the 5th video that I've made about the book and we're sort of talking about it chapter by chapter. I'm going to go ahead and put a link up to the playlist on the screen now if you want to go back and watch any of the other videos. But today we are talking about part 1, which is called Matrimony, and chapter 4, which is about Robyn and Kody. So of course, I had to start the video today with a little bit of the theme song from She-Rah and then a picture of Robyn. And because that is how this chapter starts out. So right there, when the chapter starts, about a page and a half into it, we get the She-Rah story. But I do have to tell you about what leads up to that story because she really packs in a lot of information on the first page. We find out that she grew up in a polygamous family. Her mom was the second wife, and her mom and dad had a fantastic marriage. They were happy. They seemed very much in love. She said the honeymoon years went on for a long time with her parents. So she saw polygamy in a very positive way. So this is something that she thought she would have in her life. We find out in the first page and a half that she got married, and they really gloss over it. I feel like we learn a lot more in the show than we do in this book about their first marriage. And maybe she just didn't want to relive it, writing this all down. Maybe she was like, I don't want to talk about my first marriage a lot. But we find out she got married at 21. She had her 3 kids. She had been a stay-at-home mom. She says that her first husband, David, was in the same faith as her, and you would have thought that would have given them a really good foundation for their marriage, but the truth was they struggled a lot. It was very unstable and destructive. I'm going to read what she says about their marriage. It says, both my marriage and its collapse were incredibly difficult for me. I suffered a lot of pain and hardship. I had been badly mistreated and misled by my ex-husband. A little further, she adds, the aftermath of my marriage left me feeling vulnerable and used, as well as exposed and helpless. I thought it was interesting that she said, I felt used, because to me, that is the type of language that might be used if you are growing up in purity culture and you've heard them talk about being intimate with someone before marriage. You're going to be used when you meet your husband. Like, this sounds like something she has heard, and unfortunately her faith has made her feel. To me, this is less about him and more about her. And if some of you are thinking, well, maybe you're misunderstanding what she's saying here, I mean, you're right, it's absolutely possible, but I want to put in a clip of Robyn, and this is her before she is going to talk to the kids and the family about remaining pure until marriage. Listen to what she says.
Actually going to speak to the kids about the biggest mistake in my life, and I'm actually pretty nervous about it.
So she calls it the biggest mistake of her life, and then as the show goes on, we see her talk to the kids about not being intimate before marriage. So, and in case you're wondering why I'm using this language, I know that YouTube sometimes flags channels for saying certain words, and I'm just trying to sort of tiptoe around it, unfortunately. But I think most of us know a lot of faiths, prioritize or put an emphasis on remaining celibate until marriage. This is no exception, and it was something that I think Robyn felt really ashamed of. And then she gets pregnant. She's not married.
When I found out I was pregnant, I was devastated. I was scared of all of my family rejecting me. I was scared of what my church was going to say.
And she ends up sort of feeling, I'm sure, pressured into this marriage. So she's saying it's the biggest regret of her life. As part of me wonders, is the biggest regret actually that she, was intimate with David, or was it that she got pregnant and got pressured into a marriage that wasn't right for her? But that is really all that they say about that. It ends up being that she gets divorced, and this is where the alter ego of She-Rah comes into the picture. Robyn says that the divorce left her in a very vulnerable place, and she didn't feel like she had anyone that would protect her. She realized that she needed to protect herself, and she says, I invented an alter ego who became my protector. Her name was She-Rah, and she represented my tougher, bolder side. Since no one would come to my rescue, I transformed part of me into my own superhero. She-Rah helped me protect the softer, more sensitive parts of my psyche. Robyn gives She-Rah a lot of credit. She actually says that She-Rah was instrumental in helping her cope with the turmoil of the marriage and divorce. And later she says, any man who approached me was going to have to prove himself in every way possible, and he would have to go through She-Rah. So I couldn't leave that part out because, let's get real, it's a little bit amusing. I just couldn't. And it's been brought up on the show. The whole She-Rah thing has been brought up on Sister Wives. Now, at this point, Robyn is divorced. She really doesn't want to focus on starting a relationship. She says she decided to take a break from relationships, but she knew at some point she would date again, and being a mother of 3, it was going to be different than it was before. She said she also knew it was possible that she was going to be entering a family as a plural wife. Like, she really wanted to be a sister wife. So that was something she was wanting. She says she wasn't worried about superficial things anymore. She didn't care what the guy looked like. She says in the book, I didn't care if he was young, old, fat, or skinny. I didn't care as long as he was a good man and a good husband. She goes on and says that she wanted someone whose sole focus was taking care of his family. So here's my thing. I don't think that's surprising in any way. I think if you are single and you have children and you're at that point where they're still young, you have to get with a partner who's at that place as well. You're not going to go meet some guy who's wanting to be single and travel around the world at that point in life. You know, she has children. She had to take care of them. She needed to be with a partner who wanted to do that as well. So to me, her saying that, that's what most people would say. There's nothing surprising at this point. So at this point, Robyn is living the single life. She decides to go visit her cousin, Reba, who lives in Lehi, Utah. And she is there at a church service with her cousin, and in front of her sits a shaggy-haired, blonde dude. We know who this is, right? It is Kody Brown. She says she noticed his laugh lines, and she really likes laugh lines because then she can tell that someone is happy. She actually says, I'm not exaggerating when I say I felt as though I'd been shot through with a bolt of lightning. So she immediately is looking at him and just blown away, right, by Kody. And she says she was furious with herself for feeling this way. And she says, before She-Rah could scold me, I quickly repaired the crack that had appeared in my armor. So She-Rah didn't protect her that time. She was feeling things about Kody Brown, this man she doesn't know at the time, sitting in front of her at church. So a month passes by, and then she goes to visit her cousin Reba again, and Kody ends up driving by. So they're all outside. Kody drives by and then pulls over and starts talking to her cousin. And he is in a convertible, and Meri is in the passenger seat with him.
So Kody and I were out one night, and we went over to a friend's house, and Robyn happens to be this friend's cousin. And so that's where we first met Robyn.
She says that Kody got out of the car and he was very dynamic. He had a lot of energy. She says it was very difficult to ignore him, but she tried to focus on Meri, and she said Meri was very sweet and very engaging. And this is what she says about She-Rah. So She-Rah is not gone at this point. It says, She-Rah was screaming at me from inside my head, warning me not to even look at Kody, but it was difficult to ignore him. So they're all standing there out on this lawn, and according to Robyn, Kody looks at her and says, and who's your husband? I don't have one, I said. Then he teased me about marrying me off to one of the guys sitting around on my cousin's lawn. Now, I just want to stop right here and say something. Is this not a little weird? For those of you who, I'm guessing most of us are not members of a faith like this, I think it's weird to talk about marrying someone off to somebody. Like, what an awkward conversation to have. So weird to me. But yeah, I'm going to keep going. So we fast forward a little bit, and Robyn's mom is really trying to get her to go to this church in Lehi again. And Robyn is feeling really ashamed of the fact that she is divorced and that so many people knew her husband. And she says she felt like the dirty laundry had just been aired out for everyone. And so I think she just felt embarrassed. That is what you get from reading this part of the book. But eventually her mom convinces her to go, and she ends up escorting her brother and sister to a dance. And she said it was just for them to be social. But her mom was really encouraging her, and this is the quote in the book. Her mom she says, "My mom insisted that I get my scent out there." So everyone is really trying to get her out there so she can get married again. And she goes to this dance. Meri comes up to her and talks to her. And then Meri walks away, and then before the night is over, Kody comes up and asks her to dance. And she said she felt like Meri probably took pity on her. But she dances with Kody, and she says, "I'd completely lost track of time and place. It was as if Kody and I had escaped to an island together." So this dance is just, there's such a connection between them. She is just forgetting where she's at. The dance ends, and that is it at that point. She said she thought Kody was nice and everything, but she really wasn't at a place where she felt like she was ready to get married, and said that God was just going to have to hit her over the head to show her it was the right person, because she wasn't going to jump into anything. So she really didn't know if she'd ever see Kody again at this point. So it switches over to Kody, and he basically tells the story that we've heard on the show before. They met Robyn out at her cousin's house. Meri really thought there was something special about Robyn. And then they saw her at the dance, and Meri encouraged Kody to go over and ask Robyn to dance. So Meri really, really liked Robyn. And then Kody says that there was just something that was spiritual, like a spiritual connection between them. He says it was something deep and transcendent. I guess you could call it love at first sight. So he calls it love at first sight. He says it here. Now we know from the stories about Christine, Janelle, and Meri, it wasn't the same. It wasn't love at first sight. But in my opinion, that doesn't mean that he didn't love them. I think he loved them. I think it just unfolded a little bit differently. I think at this point, he is married to 3 women. They've been married a long time. They have 13 kids. Here's this new, younger woman. I think he probably did feel things when he was dancing with her. I don't think it made the love he had for the other women any less. But that is just my opinion. In the book, Kody says that after the dance, him and Meri stayed up to talk about Robyn and the idea of a new wife in the family. He says, and I want to read from the book, he says, "Despite our minor disagreements, our family was stable. All my wives were happy." I wanted to point that out because I know now, in season 18 and in season 17, I feel like Kody has made it clear that Robyn wasn't a part of the problem. Like, they were unhappy before Robyn. They were unhappy around the time Robyn entered the family. It just continued. Like, there's been unhappiness the whole time. And I'm going to be honest with you, I actually believe that. I do believe to a certain extent the relationships weren't working before Robyn entered the picture. I think just adding Robyn added a whole new element to the problems and made it worse. And then Kody avoided dealing with it and ran over to Robyn's house. And then there's that. He's neglecting his wives and kids. That is what I think, if I had to summarize what I believe happened. But according to this, they were all as happy as can be. And Kody didn't know if he wanted to disturb the peace that the family was having at that time. This is what Kody says about the conversation after the dance. "We were lost in our own world as we were discussing the undeniable feelings we both shared that Robyn was not a special person on her own, but a special person to us. Meri and I kept looking into each other's eyes and saying, 'Something's happening. We feel something happening.'" I hope that wasn't what actually happened, because that's really weird. Like, can you imagine talking to your partner, your husband, your wife? I don't know who you are and what you have, but your person, and being like, "Something's happening. Something's happening." Like, it just sounds so weird. I don't think they realize how odd some of the situations sound to people from the outside. To me, this is just bizarre. But clearly after the dance, Kody and Meri were convinced that Robyn would be entering their family. That is what they're trying to tell us. So the dance was on a Saturday, and Kody expects that the next morning he is going to see Robyn at church, but she is not there. They don't see her anywhere, and he is just heartbroken. He said had he known she wasn't going to be at church the next day, he would have not ended things so quickly the night before at the dance. He says he walked up to her cousin Reba and said, maybe you should call Robyn and ask her who she's thinking about right now. I feel like only Kody Brown would walk up to someone and say something like that. It just seems very bold, to assume that after a dance, the other person is just thinking about you all night, and they're thinking about you so much that you're willing to go up to their family members and talk about it in that way. It's just a little bit weird to me. But basically, they end up telling Robyn's cousin that they are interested in her. Because she asks, she's like, what are your intentions? Like, what are you thinking about Robyn? And they tell Reba, Robyn's cousin, that they have been bitten by the same love bug. We told her that our feelings concerning Robyn were profound. We explained that we fully intended to look into getting to know Robyn better if she was open to it. And Reba was very excited to hear that. So what's interesting here, though, is when it comes to the wives, because there are 2 other wives at this point, they're not really brought up here. It is very much Meri who's a part of this, and not Christine and Janelle. And then at this point, the story or this chapter switches back over to Robyn. So Reba calls Robyn and says, hey, this family is interested in you. They're a really good family. You need to come back to Lehi. And Robyn's like, I cannot afford to make that trip. The gas is too much. It's 300 miles. That's what she says in the book. I did not look that up. So she's saying it's 300 miles. I don't have the gas money. I'm not coming back there. And Reba tells Robyn more about Kody and his family. And it's then that Robyn realizes that Kody actually has 3 wives. If she entered the family, she would be number 4. Now, she says she understands that she's older, she's divorced, she has kids. She is probably never going to be a first wife again, but she really wasn't sure about being a fourth. Like, being a 4th wife is going to be complicated. So she just says no. She tells Reba she's going to think about it, but it's probably no. Reba, again, is like, hey, I will give you gas money. But Robyn is just not sure about doing this. So the phone call ends, and for the next few days, she just goes back and forth about it. Like, will she go? Won't she go? She tries to look for signs from God that she is supposed to go down there and meet them, but she's not getting them. So finally, she just says to her kids, we can go down and visit Reba, but it's a 300-mile drive. It's going to take us a long time to get there. And she's convinced her kids are probably going to say no because they don't like to be in the car very long. And if they say no, then that will be her sign. Like, that's it. She's not going. But instead, her kids say yes. So they make the trip back to Lehi. So at this point, we find out that Kody wants to plan a barbecue for Robyn coming to Lehi. So he is wanting to have like a welcome barbecue for her. But there's a problem. He hasn't actually told Janelle about Robyn. Meri knows about her, and he had told Christine about her the night after the dance. Now, Christine, when she found out, she was just disappointed that she hadn't stayed at the dance longer to meet Robyn, because at this point, she hasn't met her. And Kody says Christine is a warm and inviting person. I knew that she would go out of her way to welcome Robyn. So he has already told Christine. Christine wants to meet her. Meri wants to meet her, but he has to tell Janelle, so he goes and tells her, and this is what it says. She put her hand over her chest and said, oh my goodness, there's something special about this. This is supposed to happen. Tears welled up in her eyes. She says she felt a burning in her bosom. It was an undeniable affirmation. All I have to say is, Janelle, if your bosom is burning, you need to check for a rash. Make sure your bra fits okay. Go to the doctor. You do not let your husband get another wife, okay? I just think when I read this stuff, it is so far removed from who I am and the way I live. It's a cross between being completely shocked that they do and say the stuff they do and say, and this other part of me that just thinks it's funny. Like, this cannot be real, but it is. It is. So everyone is okay at this point with meeting Robyn and welcoming her. And so they're going to have a barbecue. So Robyn arrives at the Browns' house and they are having a barbecue for her. Her cousin Reba is there as well. And Reba sort of parades her around. Reba wants her to meet everyone. And Robyn said it was really awkward. This was an uncomfortable feeling for her. She didn't like the feeling of all of the eyes being on her. Robyn says that She-Rah was telling her to leave, to go away from this place because this was all scary. And Robyn said she was trying to build walls to hide behind. She just wasn't certain about this. But there was a moment where the walls crumbled. And that was when Janelle left and she was going to go get the older kids. And she left Savannah with Kody. And Kody said, hey, I'll put Savannah to bed a little later. So Robyn sort of sees Kody take Savannah into the kitchen, and he's at the sink and he is washing her feet. So I'm guessing Savannah had been running outside or playing and her feet had gotten a little dirty. She was about to go to bed and Cody's just wiping them off a little bit. And Robyn says that no one was nagging him. No one was telling him to do it. He was just doing this because he loved his daughter and wanted to make sure she was comfortable in bed while she was sleeping. And she really, really liked this about him. She could see that he was a good, attentive father. So this started to make the walls crumble for her. So the barbecue ends, and the next day they all go to the same church. And Meri invites Robyn over for lunch. And she heads over there, and she ends up being alone with Kody for a little bit. She says it was a bit uncomfortable. And he tried to talk to her and get her to talk about like her past, like how she got to where she is now, being single with 3 kids. But she said she didn't really want to talk to him alone about that. She preferred to wait until everyone was home so all the wives could hear her story and what had happened. But then all of the kids come home. So all of the teenagers are running through the house. And she said everyone was happy. Everyone seemed happy. They were loud. There was a little bit of chaos, but it was loving. Like it was good. It was a good chaos. And Kody was dynamic and attentive. And he was just everywhere for everyone, which is such a funny thing to read now that we know what the future looks like. But she saw Kody just being this fantastic dad and husband. And I think it added even more to those crumbling walls. I think she really was loving this family. So it switches back over to Kody, and he says that Madison was the one that noticed that Robyn was there in the house and asked who she was. And I guess there had been a running joke in the family that Kody was going to take a younger wife. So he responded by saying, that's Robyn and she's 30. So everyone kind of knew, the older kids, what he was insinuating. Like they were thinking of her as a new wife. And then at one point, Christine goes up to Robyn and says, so do you think our husband is cute? Which is very much a Christine thing to say. But Robyn responds by saying it doesn't matter what she thinks. It's completely up to God to decide if Kody is the right person for her. And Kody says he felt very deflated by that answer because he wanted her to acknowledge the electricity that he had felt. Even though Robyn wasn't giving the answers that Kody wanted, he still knew he was in love with her. So the wives continued to get to know Robyn, and Kody continued to get to know her as well. So the chapter switches back over to Robyn, and she basically says that she did not want to appear desperate and she didn't want to chase a married man. She said she was divorced and had kids, and it was very presumptuous of her to think a man with children would want to take on her children as well. So she, is trying to make sure she doesn't appear desperate or needy. But Kody still wants to pursue, a courtship with her. So he goes to the church leaders with Christine and Meri, and they get permission. So then Kody goes to her dad, and her dad gives permission. But this is what her dad says. You can't court her, but you can get to know her. No flowers, no chocolates, no love letters. And she says that's because her dad knew how badly she was hurt from her first marriage. So they're just trying to be very careful and take things slowly. So they continue to get to know each other, and most of it is done over the phone because they live very far apart. And then eventually her dad gives permission for courting, for like the real intention to marry. Robyn does point out that during all of this, they were chaste. She says they only touched and held hands when they were in prayer. So no kissing, no hugging, none of that. But she says even though she was starting to fall in love with Kody, she really wanted a eureka moment. She wanted angels singing in her ears, and that hadn't happened yet. So she's not sure yet, but she says Kody said and did everything perfectly. And then, of course, we switch back over to hear what Kody has to say. So Kody fills us in about what is happening at the time that he gets permission to court her. And basically, he is working as a sales rep. He is selling billboards, but he is making no money. Like, sales were at an all-time low. So the family is really struggling financially. And you think that would stop them from pursuing this relationship with Robyn and bringing 3 more kids into the family? But it doesn't. Of course not. He gets permission to court her, and it just happens to be that she is in Lehigh at that time. So they go on a date. They share all of the details of their lives on this date, and he tells her that he loves her. So that is that. They have no money, but this seems like a good idea to them. I don't know. I can only assume the show might have had something to do with it at this point. Now, he says that Meri, Janelle, and Christine are 100% on board. They know that Robyn is supposed to be in the family. They refer to it as the knowing club because they know it. They know she is supposed to be the 4th wife, but Robyn still isn't sure. So she doesn't know that she's supposed to be the 4th wife yet. So then it switches over to Robyn, and we're really getting to the end of their chapter. She says that she may have loved Kody, but she wasn't saying it yet because she wanted to be 100% sure. She was not going to rush and jump into anything. And this is where she has a part that's a little interesting to me. You know, Christine always emphasizes that she wanted the whole family. She wanted the sister wives. She wanted the polygamist experience. But this is what Robyn says. Some of my sister wives were more interested in the sisterhood than in the husband. But perhaps since I'd been married before, I knew that I needed a man whom I loved, trusted, cherished, and adored. I knew that asking for and receiving all these things is hard. So she is basically saying she's not doing that. She's not just going to focus on the sister wives, which is kind of what Christine always said that she wanted. So I thought that was interesting. She says she went to visit Kody and she was praying and fasting. She wanted a sign or affirmation to know that this was really what she was supposed to do. She says she got her sign when she was on a date with Kody and they had drove to this beautiful lookout spot. And she said she felt her chest, her heart start to swell. And she said she was out of breath and she started to cry, and then Kody started to cry. And they were just very overcome with all of the emotion. And she knew then that this was supposed to happen. So at this point, the book switches over to Kody. And he says he had planned on asking Robyn to marry him on her birthday. But Robyn had shared with him that an older and esteemed man had asked about courting her. And so now the pressure is on. Kody cannot wait. According to Kody, though, Robyn said to this other man, she thinks that she's supposed to be with Kody in this family. But Kody still feels the pressure, right? He has to make something happen. So they're at this lookout where they're both overcome with emotion. Kody asks Robyn to marry him. And he grabs her face and gives her a kiss because according to him, Christine had made him promise that he would kiss any new wives that entered the family because they felt like not kissing was a mistake. Christine and him had both wished they had kissed before they were married. And so Christine had made him promise that if he married again, he would kiss that new wife before they actually said their vows. So he kisses Robyn, he proposes to her. She says yes. They don't get married for 6 more months. But Kody points out here that he does not have the money to support her. He doesn't even have the money for her to move there. So their lives are just not that great at this point. And that is where this chapter ends. I just have to be honest with you guys. This has been my least favorite chapter so far. And I can't really tell you the exact reason. I think it's probably a mix of the fact that we've heard so much about Robyn's past on the show, and I really don't think Robyn should have entered the family. I think they should have been done bringing new wives into their household and into their family. And so I don't love this part. I feel like after 16 years of it just being Janelle, Christine, and Meri, I think that should have been the end of it. Because I think the goal should have been that they raised kids together and they were doing things together. I just don't, I'm not a fan of Robyn entering the picture so much later. So I think a part of me didn't really enjoy this chapter a whole lot. But you guys can let me know what you think down in the comments. And if you haven't already, go ahead and click like and subscribe. Next, we will be moving on to part 2, which is called sorority. So we're going to just hear from the wives themselves, and Kody does not write in this part of the book. So that's what we'll be doing next. I hope you come back here to Happily Ever Reality.